Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of All the Way In. For this week's episode, I'm doing a solo episode, and I'm actually really excited. I've been doing quite a bit of reflecting the last few months or so, I would say. And obviously, as you guys know, I had my season in the fall. So just kind of looking back on that, and then also just my time as a whole here as a college athlete. And so I've been kind of like thinking about both of those things, and then also just started accumulating like a list of things that I find like most valuable to like my mindset and kind of approach to everything. And also just like a lot of the things that I've learned. And so I was kind of looking through this. I was like, oh, wait, this could be like a really cool idea for a podcast. So I wanted to do a solo episode on this and basically just give you guys a list of things or a list of the most valuable things that I think everybody should know about being a college athlete. And I think these things are really great to know if you're like planning on coming into college and being a college athlete, or if you're interested, or even if like you're just curious to know more about what it's like to be a college athlete. I think that these things provide a lot of really good insight into like more of the mindset and challenging things that you deal with being a college athlete. There's a lot of learning and adaptability that goes on, and it's hard because it's at such a young age, like, you know, coming in at 17, 18 years old and having to learn a lot of these things. Like, most people don't go through challenges like this and figure out this kind of mentality until much later in life. And so I think it's amazing that we get to do this as college athletes, but it can also be really challenging. And so that's kind of why I thought this would be perfect. And these were also things that I wish someone had been able to tell me before coming into college. I think a lot of these things, like obviously everybody's different, and everybody's going to learn things through experience, no matter how how much you prepare them or what you tell them. But I think for me, it would have set my mind at ease a little bit more, just feeling like, okay, I'm prepared going into playing college soccer. I know what to expect a little bit more. Whereas I feel like kind of looking back, I went in a little bit more blind. So I hope that this can help you guys out with that and just give you a little bit more insight into what it's like being a college athlete. Next week, I will be back with another guest on the show, so I'm very excited for that, so stay tuned. And also, if you guys didn't know, you can listen or watch new episodes of All the Way In, just like this one, on both Spotify and YouTube, and they're just at All the Way In Pod, so I'll have both of those linked in the show description below. And if you don't follow us on Instagram as well, go and check that out. I post a lot of like snippets from podcast episodes before they come out, and also updates and stuff like that. So go follow the podcast on Instagram. It is also All the Way In Pod, and both the Spotify and YouTube are linked in the Instagram as well. Okay, so getting started into the episode. Oh my gosh, my throat. Sorry. Okay. So I was kind of like all over the place, like, oh my gosh, where do I start with this? I don't really know what piece of advice to start with. And then I was like, well, maybe I should start with something that has been really difficult for me to kind of learn and implement into like my mindset and my approach as a college athlete. And this is something that I really just but like really implemented into everything recently. And I would say really just like end of last semester into this semester. So this is very fresh for me. So I was like, okay, great. This is perfect to start with. So this, I would also say, I think is more of a controversial take. Not controversial, but like I think a lot of people might disagree, and I think it kind of goes against what a lot of people typically say, but I'll kind of explain it a little bit more and get into my experience with it. So hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense and you can see where I'm coming from a little bit better. So to basically sum up this first point, when you think about it, everything for the most part is in your control. Now, I know this can sound maybe like a little bit scary for some people, and has taken me, like I said, a while to kind of figure out and adapt to. But obviously, there are things you can't control. I'm not going to say that there's not. There's a lot of things you can't control. Like as a player, I can't ultimately control the final decision of whether I play or not, whether I start or not, etc. Like that comes down to the coaching staff. But I guess where I'm coming from with this is kind of breaking that a decision like that, for example, down into how much of this can I fully control? And instead of choosing to focus so much on, oh, well, it's the coach's decision, I can't control that I'm not starting, like, and kind of placing the blame on someone else and like ultimately placing it on your coach, have some like self accountability and responsibility, and rather like take the mindset of, you know what, I can control these 5 things or like however many things, whatever. And that those things all play into this final decision. And so for me, something that I have really like said, okay, especially like after kind of coming off my fall, I need to take better self accountability for myself. And yes, I can't control that I'm not going to start or I'm not going to play or whatever the decision is, but I can control things like my mindset, my attitude, my effort, my reactions to things. Like all of those things are very small details and things that accumulate every single day that I can control and ultimately play into that coaching decision. And so for me, when I kind of come at this with everything is mostly in my control, I'm kind of taking it as, okay, I can do these like small steps every single day that I have full control over. No one can take away from me. No one can diminish these things. No one can say, oh, well, you didn't do your best today. You didn't give everything you had today. That's like a non-negotiable. Those are things that I do every single day. And so that's like not an excuse that a coach or anyone else can have when it comes to things like playing time and starting and getting on the field and like whatever it is. Like those are things that you're doing every single day. And so kind of for me, looking back on my fall experience, like overall, it had its ups and downs. Like I played a lot, I started a lot, and then I had games where I didn't play at all and I didn't start. And so that can be really challenging mentally to kind of go through. Seasons are like ups and downs constantly. You're just like riding this roller coaster and it can be really hard to navigate. And so when I started implementing this towards the end of my season, that's when I really found so much so much weight lifted off of me and so much more enjoyment in what I was doing, because instead of focusing on these small decisions that I have no control over, I'm focusing on the bigger part of these decisions that I have complete control over. And so kind of like I said, and I'll kind of get into a few of these things later on as well, but like showing up every single day, I give everything that I have, the best that I am every single day. And it's just like small details like that accumulate over time that will not only like help set you up to, you know, probably play more, start whatever those goals are, but also just like give you consistency every single day and give you a lot of peace of mind in your mindset, because I'm focusing on what I know I have complete control over. And this is something too that I've talked a lot about with our sports psych, Aubrey. I've met a lot with her in the past and kind of still continue to as well. But this is something that I talked to her a lot about, and it's been hard for me to kind of realize. And I think the last part of that for me was more the self-accountability thing. And it's taking more of the weight of that decision on your shoulders, and like you do have a little bit more control over those final decisions than maybe you actually realize. So, long story short, you do have a lot more control over everything than you think you do. So take control over the things that you can do every single day. Take self-accountability and ultimately just like respect yourself. So kind of shifting forward from that, talked about it a little bit, but I wanted to elaborate a little bit more as well. And this is really important to remember and remind yourself, especially early on as a freshman. And this is something that our team talks a lot about every single day, and our coaching staff preaches a lot. And that's something that I'm very grateful for, because I think that can be really rare. Obviously, I don't have experience in any other programs, but just from, friends and stories of other people, it can be a lot different. And you just have to remember that this is going to be really hard, and you're not going to be 100% every day. You're not going to be on your game every day. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have good days. But kind of back to the controllables, like, one thing you can control is giving 100% of everything you have that day. So, whether that means you're at 50% or you're at 100%, it doesn't matter. You're giving 100% of that 50%, or you're giving 100% of everything that you have. So every single day you are giving everything that you have. And ultimately, that's all anybody can ask of you as well. And I think this was like a big mindset shift for me as well. Like, people can't expect you to be perfect. And if they do, and I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later too, but that's not a you problem, that's on them. So take control of, okay, I can give everything that I have today, and I know it's not going to be 100% every day, and that's fine. And that'll take time to get into. It can be challenging. But knowing that, you know what, I went out there and I gave my best effort and I gave everything that I have today, and that's good enough for me, and that's good enough for your coaches, and that's good enough for your teammates. Like, that's all anybody can ask of you. Oh, I like this one. Okay. This is, I think, probably one of the hardest adjustments that you see underclassmen struggle with. And I think it depends on the person. Like, I don't think this was as much of a struggle for me personally, just with how my personality is and the type of mindset and person that I've always been. But everyone, I think, definitely faces this adjustment and adversity a little bit. And it's the idea and your mindset behind embracing the grind. And this is like literally the definition of playing at this level, and especially even like going beyond collegiate athletics and playing at the pro level. Like, if you want to succeed and be really good at this level, then you're going to have to figure out how to embrace the grind and what that mindset looks like for you. Obviously, everyone's different and it's going to look a little bit different for everyone, but you, like, at this level, everyone's really good. You can't just rely on your talent anymore. And also, well, it kind of goes on the flip side of things too. Like, everyone works really hard as well. Obviously, you didn't get here if you didn't work hard. So you have to kind of find things that are going to set you apart. And for me, this is something that was also a little bit difficult to come to terms with, because it can be hard feeling like something that I've struggled with personally on this kind of thought is like, I feel like sometimes I have to work harder and give a lot more than other people do for the same opportunities and to see the same success. And you know what, at the end of the day, like, that's just the reality of how things go. I have to work harder on this skill, and my teammate has to work harder on maybe a different skill that I don't really need much work on. But that's just how people are, and that's the reality of being a high-level athlete. And so you have to find and tap into the mindset of grinding and figuring out like what you need to put extra work into and what you need to focus on. And for me, something that has really helped me kind of set myself apart is I'm going to go out there and grind. I'm going to do the extra work. I'm going to do all the nitty gritty stuff that no one else wants to do, because I know it'll make me better and I want to be better. And just kind of embracing like working hard and separating yourself, because it can be really hard. But if you want to be the best player at this level, those are the kind of things that you have to do. And also, I think a big part of this as well is, how is your mindset and approach towards things like fitness, running, like extra weight room stuff. Like, obviously, no one loves running. Like, no one loves going out there and running the beep test or running hill sprints or doing extra fitness. Like no one enjoys, well, I shouldn't say no one, but 98% of people do not enjoy doing that. Like it sucks. It's hard. You're fatigued. Like after a long practice on Fridays and we're running like 30 plus 40-yard sprints, like no one wants to do that. It's really freaking hard. But it's all in your mindset and the way that you approach those things. And if I'm going into those things with a crappy mindset and attitude, then I'm not going to get better and I'm not going to get anything out of it. And it's going to be so much more difficult for me in the moment. Whereas if I approach it with, you know what, this is going to be a grind. I know that this is going to suck, but this is the stuff that I have to do to get better. This is the stuff that I have to do to get on the field, to earn a starting spot, to be successful, to be a better athlete, to be a better soccer player. And so for me, approaching it with that mindset has not only made things a lot easier, but it's also helped me be more successful as an athlete. And so I think that's going to take time to develop. And I think a lot of freshmen, you see a kind of gap in that. But over time, I think you'll kind of learn that. But that's a really good one, too, to start adapting into and like practicing before you get to college, because that kind of mindset is a really big separator for people that you see are really successful starting every game playing 90 minutes and people who aren't touching the field. Like there's definitely a really big difference in their mindset in terms of grind, work ethic, extra work, stuff like that. These next two, I feel like kind of go hand in hand. So I'm going to combine them a little bit, talk about them together. But this is something that both of these things I have really dealt with, experienced, struggled with throughout my time here, and have finally like kind of learned and accepted that these things are very normal. And I don't think a lot of people talk about them. I think more and more now people are beginning to talk about them just with like social media and people being more open about mental health and stuff. But I think they're really important for people to remember and also just normalize, because it is a very normal thing. And you see so many people, even at the club level, experience struggles with this, especially at the college level. And I'm sure especially at the pro level as well. But the first one is burnout is normal, and it's completely a real and valid thing. You're not going to love your sport 100% of the time. And then kind of going off of that, the other one is you are going to fall out of love with your sport at some point. And that also is very normal and is okay. And I think that this can be really hard coming in as a freshman, because at least for me and what I've kind of seen other teammates experience as well is like, this is the first time in your career for a lot of people that you are experiencing things like burnout and falling out of love for your sport. And it can be really confusing and difficult to navigate being on your own and being in a new environment and dealing with all these challenges. And you're like, well, I don't even like my sport anymore. Like, and struggling with going to practice every single day and like waking up and wanting to put the work in. And it can make things really difficult and just like confusing almost as well, because you've never experienced it before. And that's kind of how I was, especially like my freshman year and coming out of that first semester here, graduating early. It wasn't that I wasn't enjoying my experience, because I was, but there was just a lot of like really hard mental battles that I'd never really dealt with before. And kind of like dealing with all these things at once on top of being a freshman and like the pressures that I put on myself from graduating early, I wasn't enjoying playing soccer anymore. And that was the first time that I'd ever experienced that in my life. Soccer for me had always been just this escape and this freedom that I'd have. And like going to the field, no matter what was going on, no matter like if I was having friendship problems, like frustrated with school, frustrated with my parents, like whatever it was, I know that I could go onto that field at practice by myself and my mind would just be set at ease, and I would be in such a better mood and such a better headspace after doing that. And so then kind of fast forward into my freshman fall, having experiences where I didn't love going to practice anymore, and soccer just became such a stressful and like anxiety provoking environment for me. And instead of it being like my happy place in a way, it was my anxiety place and where all of my anxiety and problems and like mental health issues stemmed from. And so that was really hard for me because, like I said, never experienced that before. And I think it was hard for me as well because I didn't really open up to that many people about it. And I didn't want to talk about it with teammates, with other freshmen. Like, I just tried to hide it as best I could because I don't know whether I was like ashamed of it, embarrassed. I don't really know, but it was something that was just very uncomfortable and new for me. And so, kind of now, like fast forward and looking back on it, I do wish that I would have talked to, teammates and more people about it, but I wish I would have also given myself a little bit more grace and just knowing that it is a very completely normal and valid feeling to fall out of love with your sport and to not always enjoy doing it. Like, you're going to go through ups and downs with everything, and it's not always going to be perfect, and that's okay, and that's completely normal. This one I struggled with kind of around the same time that I was realizing, like, okay, I'm not really liking soccer right now. Like, I'm having a hard time with everything. And I talked about it a bit in my episode with Amy last week, but I just thought it'd be a really good reminder, and it's always something that's really important. And this is also something that I think can be really difficult for a lot of people to learn, and it takes time, and kind of like no matter what, you're going to go through this experience and you're just going to have to like figure your way out through it. But your identity is not in your performance as a player. Your identity needs to be outside of your sport and not in things like your performance and your playing time and your starting, like all of those things kind of, like I said earlier, but are a bit out of your control. And so putting your whole identity and purpose and focus on those things makes a really toxic relationship with your sport, and ultimately just leads to failure and unhappiness because you're never going to be able to rely on those things. Like I said earlier, your performance is never going to be 100% all the time. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be at 80% some days. You're going to be at 50% some days. That's just how it works. And so having your identity tied in things like your performance and how you're doing at practice, the number of mistakes you're making, are just setting yourself up for mental failure and ultimately just unhappiness with your sport and who you are. And this is something that took me a long time to realize, and it was really hard to get out of. And like I said, if you want to hear more about that, you can go check out last week's episode with Amy, but we talk a lot about the struggle of putting your identity in your sport, and then the kind of shift that we made from putting it into your faith instead. And so for me, when I was able to get out of putting my identity in my sport and actually put it in something reliable and stable, my performance got so much better. My mindset and my view on mistakes completely changed. And just overall, my happiness inside my sport completely changed. And when you're not so focused on things like mistakes and, oh, well, this practice was bad, and carrying that weight of that bad practice or that bad game with you for the rest of the day, for the rest of the week, for the rest of the season, it's a lot more liberating, and you can actually enjoy yourself a lot more. Going off of that as well, I think, talked about a little bit, but I think another really important mindset shift and something to, at any level of sport or even outside of sport, is your mindset on mistakes. And this can be really important. And I think something that you should start prioritizing and focusing on, especially if you are coming into college as an athlete, because this can be kind of like a make or break for a lot of people. And for me, it was a breaking point for a really long time. I kind of, like I said, had my identity really tied into my performance. And for me, it was specifically perfection and mistakes. And it was really, really hard for me to view mistakes as a positive thing and not this like big negative, terrible, awful thing that I should never be doing. And so this kind of ties into my next point too, but like perfection, you're never going to be perfect. So I'm going to make mistakes. The best players in the world make mistakes every single day in every game. They could have their best game, their very best practice, and you probably still made a million mistakes. So you're never going to be perfect. And when you shift your mindset from, instead of focusing so heavily on, oh my gosh, when am I going to make my next mistake? Or, oh, that was a really bad touch. And you're focused like so much on these mistakes and these quote unquote like bad things that you're going to do. It then, like for me at least, turned into this huge, massive snowball effect and started causing panic attacks and terrible anxiety. One mistake leads to so many more because I just get in this mindset, in this place when I was making a single mistake of like, oh my gosh, I'm this terrible player, blah, 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 like kind of leaving me down this negative thought rabbit hole. And then I just like found myself being at this like bottom of a well with no rope to climb up with, and I just couldn't get myself out of it. And so instead of, what could have been a really good practice, a really productive practice, maybe not my best practice, turned into a terrible, awful practice that was just ultimately not productive whatsoever and mentally draining because I just found myself in this rabbit hole. And so kind of leading off of that is also your view on perfectionism. And so something that I like to say and live by and have had to like engrave in my brain, because this is something that was so hard for me as someone who is a perfectionist and has been my whole life. But there's 3 simple facts. You are not perfect. You are never going to be perfect, and nobody else is perfect. Your teammates, your coach, the best players in the world, your family, like literally nobody, your boss, like you can apply it to any aspect of your life, not just sports, obviously, but nobody is perfect. Nobody's ever going to be perfect. So why are you expecting yourself to be perfect? You're literally just setting yourself up for failure, for disappointment, for mental stress, literally like for unhappiness. And it's a really hard thing to not do. And I struggled with this for a really long time because in sports, I feel like it's always this like push and like strive for perfection. Like practice makes perfect, that stupid saying that I do not like at all. But like it's really hard from being like such a young age and being an elite athlete for a really long time. Like perfection is engraved in your brain. It's engraved into who you are. And it's so hard to break that habit. But coming to college, I had to realize and I had to accept the fact that I am not perfect and I'm never going to be perfect. So I cannot expect perfection of myself. It is okay to make a mistake and it's going to happen. It's literally inevitable. It doesn't matter how good I play. It doesn't matter if it's my best game. If I score 5 goals, like I am going to make a mistake at some point. And so your view and your mindset of perfection and of mistakes is a huge make or break moment. And I think a big difference that you see between upperclassmen and freshmen and even sophomores too. But it's a really hard place to get to. And obviously like you relapse with it. And I still even struggle with it today, and like making mistakes. Like that's something that I think will always be really difficult for me. But just going into things with the continuous mindset of, I know I'm going to make a mistake. I know I'm not perfect and I'm not expecting myself to be perfect. I know I'm going to make mistakes and that's okay, because now my mindset is I view mistakes as a good thing. Obviously, I don't want to be making them, but that's how I learn and that's how I can grow as a person, as a player, as an athlete, and they're inevitable, like I've said. So it's really just the perspective that you're going to have. Like, you're either going to see them as a hindrance, or you're going to see them as growth in a way to move forward, and you kind of have to pick your poison. And, if you go with the hindrance, then I think you're really going to struggle and have a hard time mentally. And if you choose to see them as more of a growth factor, then I think you'll see a lot more progress and just increased performance. So that's my little spiel on perfection and mistakes. The next thing that I want to talk about, so kind of going off of, we've talked about burnout, falling out of love with your sport, giving everything that you have. So another key part of this, and I feel like kind of wraps like those ones up, is off days. And this I've really struggled with. I still struggle with, just because of the type of person that I am. And I think it can be hard in this type of environment you easily fall into the trap of like, go, 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 go. You have to be constantly doing something. I have to be constantly like working out, doing extra work, getting on the ball. But you do need off days. Your body needs a break. Your mind needs a break. And off days are just as important as your training days and your heaviest lift and your hardest run. Because if you're not giving your body and your mind time to recover, then over time your body's just going to deteriorate and you're not going to be able to perform at your best. So off days are really important. You definitely need at least one a week. I do one a week, and that works really well for me. I also find that it's like a really good mental reset, because kind of like I've talked about before, and I'm sure as you can imagine, the life of a college athlete is like nonstop. It's crazy busy, and it can be a lot of mental exhaustion, and it can be really draining. So having those days where you just get to like fully relax and decompress and kind of like rot like a potato on the couch all day, like that's okay and that's good. And on those off days too, some things that I like to do is kind of like incorporate a little bit of like active recovery stuff, and like I'm still doing recovery stuff. So like things like stretching, Normatecs are really nice, rolling out, like more stuff like that. And then sometimes like in the spring, I'll go for like a very light, minimal walk. If I'm feeling like it and if it's nice outside, I really enjoy walking. And so I also really enjoy like moving my body, and it can be hard for me to take off days because I just want to like keep putting the work in, and I feel like it can be like a hindrance almost. But I just have to remind myself like, no, off days are important. You need them. Your body needs time to recover and rest, and that's just as important as training. And so I think like occasionally incorporating like some like brisk walks and things like that can be good as well. But really just give your body the break it needs, because it is really important for your performance and for your mental health. Something too that has saved like my mental sanity as a college athlete is finding other exercises and like other activities to do that you can still be fit and still like get a really good workout in, but also switch it up. And I think one of the biggest struggles that me and my teammates talk about quite frequently, and I think a lot of people relate to, is it can be draining physically and mentally, like constantly doing the same things. And it can be hard, like a good example for us, or for me at least, whatever, is the weight room. And so we go through like 4-week cycles basically, and it can get very like monotonous and boring in a lot of ways, because you're doing the same exercises like every single week, a lot of the same movements. And it can be hard too, because we don't have control over the movements that we're doing. Like we are training and working out for a very specific sport and for very specific things like speed and power and performance. And like I can't just go to the gym and do whatever I feel like and like, oh, I'm going to do like lunges and squats and Bulgarians and like whatever. Like I don't get to choose the workouts that I'm doing. And as someone who really enjoys working out, but I get bored of things, this can be really frustrating for me and can be like exhausting mentally as well because I don't have control over those workouts that I'm doing. But especially in the times where you do have more freedom. So I'll give you some examples. So like, for example, for me over the summer, winter break was a really big one. And then even right now over the spring for the first like month and a half or so, when we start playing, it gets a little bit more difficult. And as we come out of 8 hours and go into 20, but like right now we're in 8 hours. So I still have like a lot of freedom and I can dedicate time to doing things that I enjoy doing that aren't just running, playing soccer, and lifting with our team. And those things bring me so much joy and are a lot more like liberating, give me a lot more freedom and just like allow me to like kind of get my headspace into something else, because one of the reasons I do love working out personally is just because I can like clear my headspace and just kind of like I said, like that happy place. But when I'm doing running all the time and I don't have control over the workouts that I'm doing, it can be hard for me to enjoy it as much. So like for me right now, I really enjoy swimming, bike workouts, and going for walks. And so when I have the availability and like Wednesdays we have off. So like Wednesdays, I'll go to the gym and I'll go swim, or I'll do a bike workout, or I'll go and do like even technical by myself at the field. Like little things like that seem super small are like really freeing for me and help me a lot mentally, but also like they're still helping you reach your goals physically. And like over Christmas break, for example, it was so nice for me to be able to incorporate a lot of other really hard workouts that I don't normally get to do at school, because I had the freedom of obviously being at home. And I could do swimming workouts every day. I could do like, I really like interval running and I don't mind doing it on the treadmill. So I could do a lot of stuff like that. So just like in the moments and the times that you do have more freedom over the workouts and the things that you can do physically, I would say take advantage of those and really just find other things that bring you joy and happiness, because it'll make your mental health a lot better and just help you get a lot further and enjoy the process a lot more. Kind of going off of that, I would also say like prioritizing things outside of your sport is really important. And that can be like kind of like I said, like those little extra workouts that I get to do that are like driven by me and things that I want to do have really helped me. But even it can be things like, I don't know, making time to see friends and hang out with new people. Or like for me, it's things like AIA. Like I have a lot of things that I prioritize and place high value in outside of my sport that just ultimately like allow me to feel like a normal person and not be so like enclosed in this bubble of being a college athlete. And I think that can be, it's a challenging mindset to navigate because it does consume so much of your life. Like I dedicate my time every single day from when I wake up at 5:30 until like probably around noon, 11:30ish, like depending on the day. But like that whole entire time block, which is half my day, is dedicated to my sport. And it also can be hard because realistically, like being a college athlete is a job. It is a full-time job. It's exhausting. It's really hard. It can be draining. And so finding things to prioritize in your outside life that are not school, that are not your sport, that are not doing things for your sport are really, really healthy and beneficial, can help you feel normal, and just like also really help your mental health. That's really helped me as well. And also has helped me bring myself out of kind of going back to the identity being tied to performance thing. That was hard, and something that helped me get out of that as well was also prioritizing other things in my life outside of soccer. And so for me, something that's really helped has been this podcast. I have a creative outlet and something to focus on and spend my time doing. And like I have to get done and I have to prioritize outside of soccer and outside of school. And that's really helped obviously keep me busy, but also just like keep me sane and feel normal and give me a purpose outside of my sport. Also, I should have mentioned this earlier probably, but that's okay. Something that is very, very important, and I think a lot of people preach, but you kind of have to like experience it for yourself and also figure out what works for you, because everybody is different. Like I said, every body is different. Everybody needs to be fueled differently, but things like your performance are so directly impacted by what you eat. And it's really important to figure out when you come to school, like how to properly fuel your body and what is going to work best for you. And everybody's different, and it's going to take time for your body to acclimate. For me personally, my body went through a really big transition from like my senior year in high school to where I'm at now, being in college for 2.5 years. Like my body has changed a lot. My muscle mass looks completely different. Like I'm a completely different athlete than I was before. And so figuring out how to best fuel my body for performance has been a really big aspect and a really big shift that I've made over break and end of last semester. And it's literally so, so important. Like you can train as hard and like at the best you can, but if you are not fueling your body and putting the right nutrients into your body that your body needs, ultimately you are not going to be the best athlete and perform at your best. So I would just say, like, obviously I'm no nutrition expert, so I'm not even going to bother giving nutrition advice, but just figure out what works best for you. And I know it can be really challenging in the dorms, relying on essentially like cafeteria food to fuel you. It can be really hard, but I tried like as best as I could in the dorms to make as much food like in my dorm as possible. I recommend getting an air fryer. So if you're a freshman, get an air fryer. You can make literally like anything in it. So that helped me a lot. But yeah, it can definitely be really hard, but it's really important to focus on. And also, I'll tie this into my next one too, but we have resources available to us as athletes. We have a whole nutrition staff. Like we have people that want to help you with these things, and it's their job and they know these things. So use them. Something that really helped me as a freshman, I feel like I've always had a really good handle on my nutrition for the most part, but coming to college, like I said, it can be really hard as a freshman relying on cafeteria food to properly fuel you. So like meet with those nutritionists that you have on staff and let them help you, because that's their job. That's what they want to do. That's what they're there for. So use your resources, fuel your body properly. We're going to shift now into the more like life-y aspect things, advice, notes. It's not like it obviously applies to being a college athlete, but it's less like on the field type stuff and more like how to succeed off the field as a college athlete, if that makes sense. So the first one, which kind of goes back to like what I was saying earlier about prioritizing other things, but pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and like being authentic to who you are. And I'll tie those two together. This was difficult for me at first. And I think like every college freshman goes through this, and like it's a really big transition. You're getting thrown into like a whole new world, all new people. Like you're not in your little same comfortable high school bubble anymore. So it's really important to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. Like find new friends, make new friends outside of your sport. And this will lead me to my next point. Wow. But it can be very easy coming in as a freshman and being on a sports team to just like kind of fall into that similar like familiar behavior and pattern of like, yeah, you have these 30 or however many people on your team. But like for me, I have these 30 some group of girls that are automatically like forced to be my friends. Like we are a big family. They have to be friends with me. They have to hang out with me. So I don't really need to go looking very far for friends because I've got 35 automatic free ones that I don't have to work for. And so it can be very easy to do that. But I would say push yourself into making new friends. Like find other people outside of your comfortable little sports bubble on your team and make new friends on other teams. Like for me, something that's really helped is like AIA. So like pushing myself the second I got on campus and graduating early and got here, like forcing myself to go to that. And like that, sometimes that meant going alone for a while. And for me, that was very uncomfortable. But like you meet people and it's fine. And a lot of people do it. And that's how you make your best friends. And some of the closest people that I've met off of my team have been through like forcing myself to go to AIA alone. And then I'm forced to talk to new people and like actually make friends with people. So that has been a really big thing for me. And also kind of like going along with that too helps with your mental sanity because it can, especially being in season, you are around your teammates literally like 24/7, especially like when we were traveling a lot. So we were gone every single week for like 3 to 5 days. That's like a lot. And you're constantly with those people. That's a lot of time to spend with those people. And don't get me wrong, I love my teammates to death. I love them more than anything. Like they're my best friends. They're my family. But it can be really hard being around those same people all the time. And it can just be a really nice mental break to go and hang out with other people who still, like for me, the biggest thing is like still understand what I'm going through and like still get the realities of being a college athlete. But it's so refreshing being in the presence of other people who you aren't at practice with every day. You don't spend 6 hours of your day with every single day. Like it's just nice to have new voices, new faces like in your life and other people to do things with. And obviously, you know, when you're with that many people for that long, you can get sick of people and that's also completely normal. So it's also nice too to just like mix things up for your sanity and your well-being. And obviously it's good to push yourself outside of your comfort zone to meet those new people. And something too, kind of going along with that, I mentioned it, but like authenticity. And I think in high school I struggled with it a bit, and just like I think everyone does, like at 16, 17, like everyone just wants to fit in and everyone wants to have friends and whatever and like be the popular person. But like really coming to college, it has forced me to kind of like discover the type of person that I am, the type of person I want to be friends with. Things like how I want to dress, like being very authentic to who I am. And that takes like practice, just like the other things I have said do. But I think it's also really important. And for me, I have found that that has led me to my people, my best friends, my amazing roommates, like being authentic to myself and finding who I am and displaying that to those around me has truly given me the most amazing support system, my best friends that I couldn't imagine doing this without. And so it's really changed my experience. So, you know, that's always, it's a hard one at this age, but as best as you can, like really just be yourself. Don't be afraid to be who you are. And if people don't like you, then that's not your problem. Like, who cares? You will find true friends and you will find true people that understand you and love you for who you are. This one is one of my favorite ones, and I just started doing it this semester. So it's fairly new for me. But I like seriously have noticed the biggest difference with it. I'm like, I don't know why I wasn't doing this before, but I mean, it can be hard. Our practices are in the morning. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but I've just like forced myself. I'm like, you know what? No, you need to do it. And so one of my biggest tips is creating a routine and sticking to it. Now, I mean, I guess maybe not everyone will thrive with this, but for me personally, I found that this is something that I really thrive under. I need like some structure and like guidance in my life to like kind of keep me grounded and keep me sane and like keep me on track with everything mentally. And so I'll share with you guys my routine, but I wake up every single day during the week, not on the weekends, but during the week at 5:30 a.m. And yes, it's very early. It's been an adjustment to get used to. But anyways, I wake up and immediately I get up, I make my bed and like go to the bathroom, whatever. And then I do my devotional. So I'll kind of touch on that's one of my points as well. But I talked about this with Amy as well. And also, I don't think I said this earlier when I talked about my episode with Amy briefly, but if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. It's a really amazing episode. I'm like, it might be my favorite episode. But yeah, so go check that out if you haven't already. But something I did talk about that in that episode with Amy was like daily devotional and stuff like that. And so for me, like getting up and starting my day in scripture in the Bible and like having that as a part of my routine has really helped me with my mindset because I'm starting my mindset off. Obviously, we have practice early in the morning. And so like I'm starting my mindset off going into that practice with a very like positive and purposeful intent, and also like kind of going back to like my purpose and what I am putting my identity in is it's starting that when I wake up and before I go to practice has really like helped ground me as well in that identity and reminding me by starting it every single day. Your identity is in Christ. It's not in your mistakes. It's not in your performance. It's not in anything else. This is what your identity is in, and it's really set me up for such a positive and impactful mindset. Another thing that I love about this like morning routine and kind of getting into things is it's taken a lot of like stress and anxiety that I have like about the day. If I have a lot of stuff due, if I have like a lot of things to work on throughout the week, like this week, like I said, I have an exam. And so like being able to take even like 20-30 minutes and like get an assignment done quick, study for my exam, work on my podcast, like that has really helped me like give me a little bit extra time to work on things so that I'm not as stressed out throughout the week and throughout the rest of my day. Going off of the productivity perspective situation, one of my biggest tips for being productive, and this is not really relevant at all to being a college athlete, but I just decided to throw it in there because people always comment on it for me and I love talking about it. So I was just like, you know what, I'll just throw it in there because I do think it's a helpful tip. And obviously people are different, but for me, what I found works the best is if I am going to be productive and like I have a lot going on, I need to get ready and I need to get dressed. I need to like feel good, look presentable, and be ready to go for the day. And that has helped me be so much more productive and also just feel like makes you feel better about yourself, makes you feel confident. And another thing, this may sound really weird to some people, but I do think it's helped with kind of the identity piece as well. Like being able to just like dress up normal and dress how you want instead of like being in your practice clothes or being in athletic clothes all day has also helped me with that a little bit because I can feel like a normal person and like do things how I want to do. Because a lot of the stuff that we do as college athletes, like I said kind of earlier with the workout stuff, but we don't have like full control over and a lot of like the decision making stuff that we do. Like I don't get to decide, what practice outfits I wear. I don't get to decide what workouts I do. I don't get to decide what we do at practice, like even though maybe I want to work on XYZ, like whatever. So having like areas in my life where I get to do what I want to do and what makes me happy is really helpful. And then obviously, like I said, just helps me be really productive. So every single day I like to, do my hair, do a little bit of makeup, maybe, put a cute outfit on, like feel really confident. And then that way I can just, attack my day feeling great. And it's really helped my productivity. This is something that I've also started to kind of utilize this semester. And I talked a little bit about it in the beginning, but we are so lucky and fortunate as college athletes to go through this experience. And we have so many opportunities available to us that literally, like nobody else, 95% of people do not ever get. And that is so special and so rare. And I think it can be hard to remember these things as collegiate athletes because we get so wrapped up in all the hard things and the struggles of being a college athlete, and just like wrapped up in our busyness and our schedules, that it can be really hard to remember all of the good things and all the opportunities that we do get. And so this tip is just like, take advantage of every opportunity that you do get. Say yes to everything that you can. And just like really take full advantage of being in this position because it's so rare and you can learn so much and set yourself so much farther ahead from literally everybody else your age just through this experience. And I know it can be hard and it's easier sometimes to focus on like the hard things and the negative things rather than like being positive, but it's such an important thing. And even too, like going along with this, remembering like the type of impact that you have as a college athlete and the type of platform that you have in your community. And this is something I need to work on. So I'm not like, whatever, I'm not like preaching this, acting like I'm this amazing, perfect person at all. Like that's not it at all. I really would like to work on this, but something really cool that we have like available to us at our university, a huge thing is like our children's hospital. And I think something that I tend to forget along with probably most other athletes is how big of like a platform and opportunity we have to be performing and competing at this level and at this university. And little kids look up to you and envy you so much. Like they want to be just like you. And it doesn't like they don't have to know who you are. Like obviously it's great if you're like this star football player and they're, everyone loves you. But it literally doesn't matter. Little girls who want to be soccer players look up to you and they want to be you and they're so inspired by you. And so the amount of people that you can touch and impact and affect at this level is literally like opportunities are endless. And so this is something I need to work on, and I want to take advantage of these kinds of opportunities and just like being more involved in the community and working with kids. But that's really big to remember. And just with other stuff too, like job opportunities, internship opportunities, like as athletes, we get so many internship opportunities available to us that other people don't get simply because we are athletes. So pay attention to those things. Like people talk about them a lot and not many people pay attention to them. And they can be like truly life-changing and one-of-a-kind opportunities. So look out for those. Remember that advantage that we have and just take advantage of it. For the last tip, advice, insight, whatever that I have for you guys about being a college athlete, this might be my favorite one. I don't know, pretty close if it's not the favorite. But we're talking about confidence. And this is literally applicable to any athlete, any sport. And it's so big at this level. And confidence is one of those things at elite level sports that can make you or break you. And kind of like the mistake things, like I said earlier, was breaking me for a while. And it was really hard for me to kind of like grasp and get control of and figure out. Because, coming to this level, you're no longer like this amazing standout player. Like everyone is amazing and standout. So you have to kind of like rebuild yourself and find your confidence in other ways that aren't you being like this single star player, because everyone's a star player here. And so my biggest thing in the way that I would love to end this is just that if you're not going to be confident in yourself, then why is anybody else going to be? And this one kind of takes like a bit of trial and error and figuring out what's going to work for you. How are you going to find your confidence? Like, people are different. People find confidence from different things, but this is something that I've put a lot of work and time and thought into, and it really has impacted my performance and changed my mindset and my perspective. And I know the things that I can draw confidence from and can help me feel confident on the field. And also like working on those things being like 100% in your control. And so like for me personally, I like to draw confidence from things like my work ethic, the time and dedication that I put into my sport and extra work and stuff like that. Like, those are all 100% controllable things that I can do consistently every single day. And I think the other key to that is consistency. So, like a hard part about finding confidence and something I used to put my confidence or like get my confidence from was my performance and how I was playing. Well, I'm not always going to be playing good. I'm not always going to be scoring a million goals. So drawing my confidence from things like that is not going to be very productive, because the second those things aren't there, like my confidence disappears. It just plummets. And so that was a really hard thing for me to kind of work through and figure out and be like, okay, so if I'm not getting my confidence from scoring goals and playing time and starting and my performance, then what am I going to get my confidence from? And so now shifting that to, my confidence comes from the effort that I put in every single day. It is 100% every single day, no matter how good my performance is, no matter what. My response to mistakes, like that is something I'm 100% confident in. And yes, of course, like my performance and like scoring and stuff like that will impact my confidence in a positive way. But I'm now at the point where I'm not going to let that impact my confidence in a negative way. Whereas before, that's kind of how it was. It was you were either playing really well and scoring a lot and doing really good, and your confidence was like all the way up here, or you weren't doing those things and your confidence was literally zero. And the role that your confidence has in how you play and your performance is huge. So working on that, finding the controllable things that you can get confidence from are huge. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. I really enjoyed making this one, and I hope that you guys can find it really helpful, just finding more insight into what it's actually like being a college athlete. This is one of the main purposes and roles that I want to have on this podcast. So I hope that you guys can learn something from this and find this useful if you're going to be a college athlete, if you're looking to be one, or like I said earlier, if you just are interested in college athletics itself and what it means to be a college athlete. You can watch or listen to new episodes of All the Way In every Friday on Spotify and YouTube. Both of those will be down in the description of this episode. And also don't forget to check us out and follow us on Instagram at All the Way In Pod. You can also find the Spotify and YouTube in the Instagram. And I will see you guys next week with another guest.